Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the franchise discussion category. This video will be dedicated to the recap and thoughts for the Codename Kids Next Door TV special, Operation Interviews. We begin this TV special with a live-action scene that shows an adult number 5 entering a studio. An individual reveals to number 5 that she, number 4, number 3, and number 2 have been temporarily recommissioned so that they can answer some questions that this individual has. At this point in time, we, the viewers, don't see who this individual is. We only hear his voice. And we quickly find out that this individual wants answers to questions relating to the last mission that number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 went on before number 1 mysteriously disappeared. Throughout the course of this TV special, we occasionally see some live action scenes that show the adult number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 commenting about the events from this flashback. And they also sometimes mention some details about events after the events of this from this flashback. Some of these details relate to the Kids Next Door organization, while other details relate to their adult lives. The flashback is in animated form, by the way. So the interviewer encourages number 5 to start with what she remembers about this particular mission. And number 5 says that this mission was one of the many missions relating to the delightful children from down the lane's birthday cake and how they refused to share it with anyone else. So the flashback begins, and we see that the delightful children are on a cruise boat right now. Number 1 managed to sneak onto the boat, and he plans to place a tracker onto the delightful children so that the delightful children will lead them to the cake. Number 1 turns the tracker on, but before he has a chance to actually place the tracker onto the delightful children reveal that they know that number 1 is on the boat with them. Number 1 and the delightful children briefly fight before eventually the delightful children jump off the boat. And then we, the viewers, find out that this boat is not on the water, it's on a car carrier. Well, a boat carrier in this case, since the carrier is carrying boats rather than cars. But in any case, the delightful children enter the vehicle that's carrying the boat carrier. This vehicle is being driven by their butler, Jenkins, and then the delightful children and Jenkins detach this vehicle from the rest of the boat carrier. The 4 other Sector V operatives make their presence known, and all 5 Sector V operatives try to stop the delightful children from escaping. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, the Sector V operatives are not successful. And after the delightful children escape, number 362 arrives, and she's furious that the delightful children had escaped. Number 1 tries to assure number 362 that they will immediately give chase, or they'll immediately chase after the delightful children. But number 362 tells the Sector V operatives not to bother because the Sector V operatives will no longer be in charge of the delightful children cake retrieval mission. Not just this mission, but future missions relating to retrieving the delightful children's cake too. Number 362 reveals that she intends for Sector W to take over the cake retrieval missions from here on out. And 3 of the Sector W operatives arrive on the scene. These operatives are number 83, aka Sonia, number 84, aka Lee, and number 363, aka Harvey, the younger brother of number 362. Number 362 reveals that number 363 recently became the leader of Sector W, and number 362 says that Sector W has an impressive track record of successfully completing missions after number 363 took the position of Sector W leader. We quickly see that number 363 has an inflated ego. He acts like an arrogant, condescending, smug jerk who who comments about how the Sector V operatives could never retrieve the cake in one piece. Number 2 argues that they did retrieve the cake in one piece one time. And number 363 continues to act disrespectful towards the Sector V operatives. He says something along the lines about the Sector V operatives being washed-up has-beens that are getting too old for the important missions. And naturally, the Sector V operatives don't take too kindly to number 363's disrespectful behavior. But number 362 says, once again repeats that Sector W will be in charge of the cake retrieval missions, and says that Sector V are not to partake on the cake retrieval missions from here on out. Number 1 tries to argue this, but number 362 interrupts number 1 to repeat her question. And then number 363 repeats the question in a smug manner to rub salt in the wounds. Number 1 says he understands, but the rest of the Sector V operatives can tell that among the 5 of them, number 1 is the one who took it the hardest. Because they have nothing else to do, the Sector V operatives return to their treehouse. Number 3 comments about how number 363 had a point that they didn't retrieve the cake in one piece. Number 2 repeats that they did one time. And number 3 tries to remember by recalling various other cake retrieval missions. But some of the missions she brings up are missions that weren't actually shown in the TV series. Number 1, though, makes it very clear that he's not happy about being reminded about the cake retrieval missions and says he would like to talk about anything else. But when the Sector V operatives enter the main control room of their treehouse, they find Father, the delightful children, and a movie crew inside. Father creates fiery fists in order to trap the Sector V operatives and to prevent them from fighting back. And we find out that Father and the delightful children are making a movie to gloat about how the delightful children will have the cake all to themselves. And they chose to film the movie in the Sector V treehouse to rub salt in the wounds. So Father and the rest of the movie crew begin to film the movie, and the delightful children give a hammy performance before they pull off the cloth that's covering the cake. But all the characters present are surprised to find out that the cake isn't underneath the cloth, but rather we see that number 74.239 is under the cloth. He's relaxing in a chair, and he remains very calm, even though he's being bombarded by questions and even in the face of Father's anger. Number 74.239 says that they took the cake, and they can get the cake back, or the others can get the cake back if they complete a test that they have come up with. Number 1 wants to know what this test is and who this group is that number 74.239 is talking about. Number 74.239 assures number 1 that he will have the answers to those questions in time. And number 74.239 also convinces Father to release the Sector V operatives. He threatens to destroy the cake if Father doesn't comply, so Father begrudgingly complies. Number 74.239 also tells the Sector V operatives to meet him at a different location at a later point in time. We quickly find out that this different location is an abandoned Rainbow Monkey amusement park. The Rainbow Monkey lets learn about the Lavatory amusement park, to be more specific. The adult number 3 actually reveals that she eventually became the president of the Rainbow Monkey Corporation, and one of her first acts after taking the position of president of the corporation was to tear down the amusement park, mostly for the smell. So the Sector V operatives arrive at this bathroom-themed Rainbow Monkey amusement park, and they find the trio of Sector W operatives from earlier are there. Number 363 is furious to see them there and reminds them about his older sister's orders that Sector V are not to partake in the cake retrieval missions from here on out. This leads to a standoff between the Sector V operatives and the Sector W operatives, but number 83 and number 84 are clearly not happy about this standoff. Number 83 tries to reason with everyone that they should work together. The standoff eventually stops, though, when other adult other characters arrive, adult characters arrive. The Senior Citizen Squad, Sticky Beard and his Candy Pirate crew, Mr. Boss, Crazy Old Cat Lady, Mr. Wink, and Mr. Fib are some examples that immediately come to mind. Oh, and the Toilinator arrives too, and eventually, once these other characters have arrived, number 74.239 makes his presence known to them. And we find out that number 74.239 actually, number 74.239 offered these other groups of characters the chance to participate in this test and have a chance of winning the cake. And the different groups of adult characters are surprised to hear this, and we find out though that the Toilinator actually wasn't invited. Yes, the Toilinator is just here to use the bathroom, and he also admits that he thinks it would be fun to ride some of the rides at this amusement park. So besides the Toilinator, all the other characters present have been invited to participate in this test that number 74.239 has organized. Number 1 is surprised to hear this. He says the kids next door would never let villains have a chance of winning the cake. But number 74.239 responds that this goes beyond the kids next door the way number 1 understands it. Number 74.239 then reveals that this test is a scavenger hunt. There's a list of items for the scavenger hunt, and each item is worth a certain amount of points. So naturally, the idea is to gather more items so that you can acquire more points, or that so a group is to acquire the most items so that they can acquire the most points. And this scavenger hunt will end at 8 o'clock p.m. if I'm not mistaken. So whoever has the most points, or whichever group has the most points by the time the scavenger hunt ends, that's the group that wins the scavenger hunt and wins a chance to have the delightful children's cake. So yes, the adult characters say that they're not interested in the scavenger hunt and are preparing to leave. Number 74.239 takes this very well, and he just tells the groups that are interested in the scavenger hunt that the list of items is not too far off. It's on a stand nearby. And then the adult characters decide they're going to participate in the scavenger hunt after all. So yes, so the characters all fight for different copies of the list, and eventually it looks like number 1 and number 363 are fighting for the last list of scavenger hunt items. Number 363 tries to get number 1 to leave by reminding number 1 of number 362's orders, but number 1 counters by bringing up what number 74.239 said about how this goes beyond the kids next door the way they understand it. Number 1 also manages to get under number 363's skin by saying that he thinks number 363 is scared of the possibility of losing to the Sector V operatives. Number 363 manages to swipe the list from number 1 and make a run for it, but before he does so, he threatens that he will see to it that number 1 is decommissioned for this. Number 5 reveals to number 1 that she managed to get a copy of the list, and she urges number 1 that they need to hurry because the other groups are gaining a lead on them. So while the Sector V operatives are preparing to head off and find some items for the scavenger hunt, number 1 expresses that he has doubts that they can even succeed in the scavenger hunt. Number 1 worries that maybe they are getting too old for the important missions. Number 5 brings up that this isn't the number 1 that she knows. And number 5 tries to encourage number 1 that they will win at the scavenger hunt and they'll have fun doing so. But she also assures number 1 that even if they don't win the scavenger hunt, there are other missions. So the Sector V operatives do make a pact with each other, and they proceed to start the scavenger hunt. So we see that Nick and Chip have arrived at the bathroom-themed Rainbow Monkey amusement park, and they're commenting about the scavenger hunt's progress. And they also have a list with them, and the list mentions all of the different groups participating in the scavenger hunt, and the list also keeps track of the of the points that each group has. And we see that the Toilinator really decided not to participate in the scavenger hunt. The Toilinator is just riding some of the rides at this bathroom-themed Rainbow Monkey amusement park. But yes, Nick and Chip are commenting about the scavenger hunt's progress, and we then see various different scenes that show how the scavenger hunt is going on. And we see that more characters have joined the scavenger hunt besides the characters that we saw earlier. So other characters that decided to participate in the scavenger hunt include the 6 Gum Gang, number 13, number 86, the Sector J operatives, and Willard Wallace, Nightbrace and Pottymouth, and King Sandy and Mushi. Those are some examples off the top of my head. And we also do get to see some of the items on the scavenger hunt list. Some examples off the top of my head include a snow cone created by Professor Triple Extra Large. He now has moose antlers in this TV special. A Yipper trading card, Skunky Scout cookies, a piano, and Count Spankulot's medallion. Yes, I bring that up because that scene gets a significant amount of focus. The Sector V operatives are trying to chase after Count Spankulot to get his medallion. They do manage to knock Count Spankulot out, but when they try to retrieve the medallion, the Sector W operatives have already beat them to the punch. And then when Count Spankulot regains consciousness, he proceeds to spank the Sector V operatives. Number 83 and number 84 show sympathy towards the Sector V operatives, and number 83 voices that they should help the Sector V operatives out. But number 363 dismisses this, saying that they need to win at all costs. So the Sector W operatives leave, but number 83 and number 84 are clearly not happy about it. And afterwards, the Sector V operatives do manage to escape from Count Spankulot, and they do manage to get an apple crumble, or one of Nurse Claiborne's apple crumbles. But number 2 eats it, even though he's aware of what the ingredients for the apple crumble are. So we continue to see more. We see more scenes throughout showing the scavenger hunt's progress. And eventually, Sector W takes the lead in the scavenger hunt. Nick and Chip actually decide to interview number 1. They bring up some of the past events that number 1 is not happy about that happened in the TV special. And number 1 inquires if there's a question to their interview. And they do clarify, yes, there is a question. They wonder if number 1 or any of the Sector V operatives, for that matter, will attend number 363's funeral. Number 1 doesn't understand what they're talking about, so Nick and Chip clarify that number 363 plans to acquire the item on the list that's worth the most points. What is this item, you might be wondering? Father's pipe. So at the mansion of Father and the Delightful Children, we see that the Sector W operatives have snuck into the mansion, and they're listening in on a conversation between Father and the Delightful Children. Father reveals that he actually convinced the Father convinced the villains to gather the scavenger hunting items on the behalf of Father and the Delightful Children, so that the Delightful Children can use all of the items to win the cake back. Father promised the villains that they would each get a slice of the cake for their efforts, but Father assures the Delightful Children that he has no intention of keeping that promise. So the time for the scavenger hunt is almost up. So Father encourages the Delightful Children to head to the bathroom-themed Rainbow Monkey amusement park, saying that the items that the villains have gathered should be there, so the Delightful Children can use these items to win the scavenger hunt. So the Delightful Children leave, and Father decides to take a nap. So with Father asleep right now, the Sector number 363 tries to reclaim the pipe, tries to get the pipe from Father. But the Sector V operatives arrive, and even though number 363 thinks that they're just here to get the pipe, the Sector V operatives clarify they're not here for the pipe. They're here to make sure that the Sector W operatives don't get hurt, because Father is out of their league. And when number 363 tried, and yes, and during this, number one, we do see in this scene, and even in an earlier scene before the scavenger hunt started, we see that number 363 doesn't like to be touched. He didn't like it when number one pulled number 363 away from Father's room to keep him from getting hurt. And when Father is still asleep, even though number 363 had his little freak out. But when number one places a hand on number 363's shoulder to say that number 363 has a lot to learn about when it comes to teamwork, number 363 shouts that he doesn't like to be touched, and this wakes Father up. The adult number 5 reveals that, the adult number 5 actually reveals that a few months after the events from this flashback, she became the supreme leader of the Kids Next Door organization, and she had to decommission number 363. Earlier in the TV special, it was shown that number 363, or it was revealed that number 363 is 7 years old. So the decommissioning wasn't because of his age, but because of his habit of freaking out whenever someone touches him. Number 4 also reveals that that he actually graduated from Harvard, and he became a medical doctor. He graduated from Harvard. Number 4 graduated from Harvard, and he's a successful doctor. But in any case, back with the flashback, Father chases after the Sector V operatives and the Sector W operatives. And while the Sector V operatives are trying to distract Father so that they can escape, during all this commotion, number 363 manages to grab Father's pipe. This angers Father, and Father transforms into a dragon to reclaim his pipe. The Sector V operatives, though, do manage to save number 363, and they do manage to knock Father down into a pit. Father created the pit earlier by accident when he was trying to attack the operatives. Number 83 and number 84 try to make sure that their sector leader is okay, but they're furious when number 363 is more concerned about how he got the pipe and how he won. He's better than the Sector V operatives, or number 1 especially. Number 363 doesn't care. He's like, I won, I got the pipe, I'm better than the Sector V operatives, I'm better than number 1, is essentially what number 363 is saying. And yes, number 83 and 84 do not take this very well. Number 83 points out that the Sector V operatives just risked their own lives to save number 363's life, and all he cares about is winning the scavenger hunt. So yes, number 83 takes the pipe from number 363 and gives the pipe to number 1. She says that number 1 has earned it, or at least the Sector V operatives overall have earned it. And number 84 shoves one of his yo-yos into number 363's mouth to get him to quit whining. And then they see that, after that, number 83 also gives number 1 the keys to the Sector W flying vehicle. She says that the vehicle has all of the scavenger hunting items that they gathered so far, and says that number 1 should head off to the bathroom-themed Rainbow Monkey amusement park to win the scavenger hunt on behalf of the Kids Next Door overall. Father, though, is preparing to emerge from the pit, and the 4 other Sector V operatives and number 83 and number 84 assure number 1 that he should go on ahead to the amusement park and win the scavenger hunt. They'll take care of Father. Number 1 is hesitant, but they manage to convince him to go off and win the scavenger hunt. Don't let the delightful children get the cake this time. So number 1 begrudgingly leaves, and number 83, number 84, and the rest of the Sector V operatives try to fight Father. So eventually, back at the bathroom-themed Rainbow Monkey amusement park, Nick and Chip comment about how the delightful children have now acquired a great number of points so quickly, and there's only 2 groups remaining in the scavenger hunt. But then number 1 arrives with all the items that Sector W had gathered, and he shows Father's pipe, which puts him in the lead, because otherwise, without Father's pipe, the 2 groups would be tied. So Father's pipe tips the balance in the Kids Next Door's favor. the Delightful Children are furious about this, and they want to get the pipe. So the Delightful Children proceed to attack number one. And Nick and Chip and the Toilinator are watching the fight. Number one and the Delightful Children are now on one of the they're on one of the rides of this amusement park, the Ride-A-Log ride, I think is what it's called. But yes, they're fighting on this particular ride. But eventually, because of the way the ride is and where they're standing, the Delightful Children are facing number one. Number one is facing in front of the Delightful Children, so number one sees what's going to happen on the ride while the Delightful Children are paying attention to number one. And number one sees a sign coming up during the ride. So number one manages to jump up to avoid getting hit by the sign, and he gets the pipe from the Delightful Children. The Delightful Children don't see the sign until it's too late, so they get hit by the sign, which distracts them. Number one gets a chance to get the pipe, and then the Delightful Children, the water slide that this ride is on has a broken part to it, and it's falling, and the ride would fall down into a giant toilet. So the Delightful Children end up falling into this toilet. And so the rest of the ride begins to break apart and collapse, but number one manages to make it out safely, and number one has the pipe with him, and the scavenger hunt is officially over. The kids next door have won the scavenger hunt. So after that, number 74.239 appears once again, and he congratulates number one. He says that they knew number one would be the victor when all is said and done. Number 74.239 then picks his nose so that a booger is on his finger, and he wants to shake number one's hand. Number one is hesitant, but he does begrudgingly agree to, he's hesitant, but he does ultimately agree to shake number 74.239's hand. This causes number one and number 74.239 to be covered in booger, like what happened with number 274 and number Infinity in Operation Treaty, and this teleports them somewhere else. Number one finds himself in a cave, and number 74.239 urges number one that they need to hurry. So number one exits the cave with number 74.239, and they find themselves in a canyon. Several Kids Next Door scientists and security guards are in this canyon, and number one sees what looks like a giant cake floating in the sky. Number 74.239 reveals, though, that that's not the cake. The cake is actually a cupcake, and then number 74.239 eats the cupcake, saying it might be the most delicious cake yet, even if it is the smallest. So number one wonders what this giant cake-looking item is in the sky. Number 74.239 reveals that it's a spacecraft, and he finally clarifies the truth behind the Splinter Cell, since in Operation Treaty, it was revealed that the Splinter Cell were not actually the Splinter Cell. That was just a cover story to hide their tracks. In truth, number 74.239 is a member of the Galactic Kids Next Door, and he says that each planet gets a representative to join the Galactic Kids Next Door. And number one has been chosen to be the Earth representative, or the Earth operative for the organization. Number one, though, and then after that, number 74.239 proceeds to explain to number one how adult tyranny occurs on other planets in the universe, not just Earth. And number 74.239 also claims that adulthood is a disease that's spread throughout the universe, and the Galactic Kids Next Door are hoping to find a way to stop this disease. Number one, though, doesn't understand why he's been chosen. He's never left Earth, or he's been to space, but he's never been to another planet. And number 74.239 says that that's exactly what they're looking for. Blank slates will be a great help to the Galactic Kids Next Door organization. And number one also questions how long he'll be gone. Number 74.239 instructs other operatives to give number one an astronaut suit, and number 74.239 tells number one that he won't return to Earth. And number one panics. While number one does want to help, help out with stopping adult tyranny throughout the universe, he doesn't know what will happen with his family and friends. Number 74.239 says that number one's friends can never know what's happened to him afterwards, and says that it's necessary because they're not ready, or saying that other individuals on Earth are not ready to understand adult tyranny throughout the universe. But number 74.239 did say that they will give number one a chance to say his goodbyes to his family. So we see number one's parents have arrived, and they've been recommissioned so that they can have a chance to say their goodbyes to number one with the memories of what he's going to do for the Kids Next Door organization. So of course, Monty has his memories of being number zero, but we also find out that Mrs. Uno was a Kids Next Door operative too. She was actually the first female operative of the 7th age of the Kids Next Door, number 999. Number 0 and number 999 are proud that number 1 will be the Earth representative for the organization, but they do admit that they are sad to see him go too. But they know that number 1 will do great things for the organization. So number 1 says his goodbye to his parents, and they do manage to say that they love each other before it's almost time for number 1 to leave. So number 1 is preparing to enter the space vehicle. There's a tractor beam to take number 1 up to the vehicle. But before number 1 actually reaches the tractor beam, the 4 other Sector V operatives arrive. Number 74.239 says that they're not supposed to be here, and he orders the security guards to catch them and take them away. But number 1 pleads with number 74.239 that he just wants to say his goodbyes to his friends like he did with his family. Number 74.239 shows sympathy to number 1's request. He tells the security guards to stand down and allows number 1 a chance to say his goodbyes to his friends. He just urges number 1 to make it quick. So number 1 proceeds to say his goodbyes to each of his teammates. Number 2 gives number 1 a backpack full of various items, including some 2x4 technology that number 2 was working on. Number 3, at first, number 3 acts like that number 1 will be back eventually, but then reveals that she knows that number 1 will be leaving. Number 3 indirectly reveals that her airheaded persona is just an act. Number 4 is trying hard not to admit that he's upset about seeing number 1 go, but he questions if number 1 will come to them for help if he needs any help. And then number 5 brings up how she had to convince number 1 not to give up on the scavenger hunt, and how impressive it is that number 1 became the Earth operative for the Galactic Kids Next Door. Number 1, though, says that number 5 deserves credit for being the one to recruit him in the organization. Number 5, though, says that they would have recruited number 1 eventually. The Galactic Kids Next Door were able to see number 1's greatness without her involvement. Number 1 then says that he wants number 5 to take over the position of Sector V leader while he's gone. He gives her his sunglasses. Number 5 is hesitant to take the position, but she eventually agrees, even though she disagrees with number 1, thinking that she is a better leader than him. Yes, number 1 believes number 5 is a better sector leader than him because she has common sense among them. Number 1 admits his tendency to be very paranoid, but number 5 insists that number 1 was the better leader between the two of them, and that it won't be Sector V without number 1. But number 1 says it was Sector V before he joined, it'll be Sector V after he's gone. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, the Sector V operatives the other Sector V operatives were able to find number 1 because of the tracker that number 1 intended for the Delightful Children. He turned it on, but he never got the chance to actually place the tracker on the Delightful Children, so that's how the rest of the Sector V operatives could find number 1. And number 2 reveals that the Kids Next Door scientists weren't very good at keeping secrets, so that's how they found out about the Galactic Kids Next Door. So after all of these goodbyes, some of the Kids Next Door scientists mention that Father is on his way to their location, and he's very angry. Number 74.239 urges number 1 he has to get going now. So number 1 and his teammates all share a group hug with each other, and they vow that they'll never grow up even if they are 100 years old, and even if they don't remember their time together in the organization. They say their final goodbyes with tears in their eyes. And eventually, Father does arrive into the area, saying how he wants his pipe back from number one. But when Father arrives, no one is around. Father lets out a big no, seeing that his chance to reclaim his pipe is gone. So we head back to another live action scene where the 4 other Sector V operatives, or the 4 Sector V operatives besides number one, are starting to get teary-eyed over remembering how number one left. And we do find out that number 3 and number 4 are married, number 2 and number 5 are married. And then we find out who the interviewer was. The interviewer was Father. He's presented in a CGI form in this live action scene. Father says that now he knows where number one is. That's the whole purpose of this interview. But sometime after Father has left, number 5 gets a call, but it's not on an ordinary cell phone. It's on a 2x4 technology device. Number 5 tells whoever is on the other line that they told Father everything he wanted to hear, and that they'll meet this caller on the moon base. And then number 5 reveals that the caller is number 1 and welcomes number 1 back to Earth. The end credits scene shows a screenshot from each of the segments and episodes of Codename Kids Next Door. It progressively becomes faster towards the end, so I don't know if or I couldn't pick out if the TV movie or the TV specials were also featured in this montage, but at least the segments and the episodes were featured in this montage. And after the montage is over, that's how we end this. Or after the montage ends, we get a watercolor picture of the Sector V operatives together, and that is how we end this TV special. So there you go. This was the second of the 2 TV specials for Codename Kids Next Door, though some fans consider it to be a second TV movie. That's kind of been a little debate. I personally consider it to be a TV special, but besides the point, it's an important entry that's not a segment or an episode because it's the series finale. And yeah, it was definitely it definitely gets you in the feels. Yeah, I definitely remember I definitely made sure I didn't miss this TV special when it first aired on TV, and at least to my knowledge, it's very rare for this TV special to air on TV, at least in the United States. I don't know if they ever aired it again after the first time they aired it, but it is available on iTunes for anyone who's curious. But yes, the TV special, finally, this was the TV special that concludes Codename Kids Next Door, and they were able to give the series some proper closure and wrap up the main storyline. And we finally find out the truth about the Splinter Cell. The Splinter Cell was actually the Galactic Kids Next Door, and these tests for number 1 was to see if number 1 would be the Earth operative for the Galactic Kids Next Door. And that's what happened. Number 1 has proven himself to be the Earth operative for the organization. And yes, that's what the sequel series or the spin-off series would be about. Yes, the sequel series would be about the Galactic Kids Next Door. So if the sequel series ever does see the light of day, we will get to see the Galactic Kids Next Door in greater detail. And I'm certainly hoping that that sequel series does see the light of day. Now, although the series finale does provide proper closure for the overall main storyline of the series, there were a few details that kind of, there was a detail that was kind of left hanging. I brought this up before, but fans of the Courting Commander pairing, the pairing between number 1 and number 362, the fans of the Courting Commanders pairing never got any closure for whatever happened with number 1 and number 362, and that didn't end up happening in the flashback that we saw in Operation Interviews. In fact, number 1 and number 362's last conversation with each other was a rather sour conversation. Number 362 wasn't happy about Sector V failing to catch the delightful children, and number 362 deciding that Sector W will take over the cake retrieval missions from here on out. Although there was an interesting detail that's led to some speculation for some fans. Now, according to the adult number 5, she brings up that she became the supreme leader of the Kids Next Door organization a few months after the events of the flashback that we saw in Operation Interviews. So number 362 stepped down, being the supreme leader of the organization. Now, I've been trying to find this to make sure that this is actually the case, but from what I can tell, it seems like it's commonly agreed by fans. At the very least, it's commonly agreed by fans that number 5 is older than number 362. I tried to find any details about that, but at the very least, that just seems to be what most fans are willing to agree with. But yes, number 362 stepping down from being the supreme leader a few months after number 1 mysteriously disappeared. This has led to some fans speculating that maybe number 362 stepping down might have partially been influenced by number 1's disappearance. That's at least popular speculation with some fans. Some fans do wonder if maybe number 362 is regretful about number 1, about her last meeting with number 1. And well, that is definitely an important lesson. I mean, sometimes you never know when your last conversation with someone is going to be, and if that last conversation ends up being on a sour note, yeah, that can definitely sting quite a bit. So again, it's not confirmed. That's just speculation, but yeah, I can understand the sentiments to those speculation, and I'm hoping that if the sequel series ever does see the light of day, maybe the sequel series can provide some closure with regards to the courting commanders pairing. I would certainly like it if that happened. So yes, number 362 ended up stepping down from the position of Supreme Leader for reasons that aren't known explicitly so far, but fans have speculated. And I know that some fans were also surprised that number 362 didn't really put her foot down with her brother's bratty behavior. Yes, this TV special, along with Operation Girlfriend and Operation Zero, the TV movie, have shown that even though number 362 does have feelings for number 1, she still is willing to put her foot down with some of his actions, and is willing to chew him out if she thinks the situation calls for it. But fans were surprised that number 362 didn't really put her foot down or chew out her younger brother for his disrespectful behavior. Some fans have speculated maybe this is just going along with the idea of some people being more willing to tolerate less flattering behavior from their family than they are from others, but yeah, I do agree. It was really surprising how number 362 didn't really lift a finger about her brother's bratty behavior, and yeah, some fans wonder if maybe we know number 5 at least decommissioned number 363 because of his whole obsession with not being touched, and we never really do get a clear answer for why that is, but speculation has been, there's been a lot of speculation about that, so I'm guessing fans are going to try and fill in the blanks about that, but maybe the sequel series can offer some answers too. But yes, I know some fans were definitely not thrilled with number 363. He was very much an unlikable character, but that's the point of the character. Number 363 is a good example of a hate sink, a character you're not supposed to like, you're supposed to dislike this character, and they definitely succeeded on that front. I remember some fans admitting how they wanted to punch number 363 in the face because of what a smug little brat he was, and some fans, though, have acknowledged, well, number 363 did have a point. The Sector V operatives didn't have a good track record of retrieving the cake in one piece. But other fans will point out, and I agree with these fans, just because you make a valid point doesn't mean you get a free pass to act like a jerk to people. And that's something, like, I do understand the And this actually brings to mind how I know some people in real life that try to justify the jerk has a point trope in real life. They try to say, oh, I made a valid point, so it's okay for me to act like a jerk. Or they're like, I'm just being honest, or I'm just telling it how it is. And it's like, yeah. And my response to that is, just because you're being honest or telling it how it is, that's not a valid excuse to act like a jerk to people. It's possible to make a valid point or speak your mind without being a jerk about it. They're not mutually exclusive. But yeah, that's kind of the deal. Like, I get the intent. I guess you could say, like, I understand what the jerk has a point trope is meant to show. The problem I have is actually not with works of fiction, because I understand what they're going for. The point I have with the jerk has a point, or the issues I have with the jerk has a point trope, is more when people in real life try to use that trope to justify acting like a jerk and think that they get a free pass to be a jerk without being called out for their less flattering behavior. When, yeah, I mean, just because you make a valid point, that doesn't mean you're immune to being called out if you act like a jerk. And yes, thankfully though, number 363 did get a reality check by the end. Number 83 and number 84 made it very clear that they didn't agree with number 363's bratty behavior, and they did eventually put their foot down with him, and they did make it clear to him, yeah, we're not taking your bratty behavior anymore. So that was pretty satisfying. I liked how number 83 and number 84 got to play a big role in this TV special, since they along with number 362 are probably my top 3 favorite non-Sector V operatives in the in Codename Kids Next Door. So I did like seeing Sonia and Lee get a prevalent role, and it was satisfying to see them put their foot down with number 363 and his jerkish behavior. And oh, that's it. That's another detail. Yes, number 363 ended up joining Sector W, and number 86's brother, number 85, was a member of Sector W too. So yes, like I said, with number 85, one of number 86's brothers being part of Sector W, this seemed to suggest that number 86 was a member of Sector W before she was promoted to a position in Global Command. And with number 363 being a member of Sector W, this seems to strongly hint that number 362 was a member of Sector W before she was promoted to a position in Global Command. So I thought that was an interesting detail worth pointing out. Oh, and speaking of Sector W, yes, I was surprised that number 85 actually didn't appear, since he's supposed to be a member of Sector W. But then again, maybe he's still trying to get his hair back to looking nice after the bad haircut that his dad gave him in Operation Daddy. So that might have been the reason why he wasn't part of the Scavenger Hunt or part of the TV special. But it would have been nice to see how number 85 would have dealt with number 363's bratty behavior. Otherwise, though, this TV special did have a lot of callbacks and references to other characters and scenes that we never really got to see much of. Like, I was surprised to see the Big Bad Adolescent return. The Big Bad Adolescent initially appeared in the first Operation Caked, and she also appeared in Operation Quiet. But otherwise, yes, the Big Bad Adolescent only appeared in Season 1 besides the TV special here. So it was pretty interesting to see the Big Bad Adolescent return, and to see some other minor characters get a bit of attention. Potty Mouth, yes. Yeah, Nightbrace and Potty Mouth were actually working together during the Scavenger Hunt too, and Potty Mouth did get a speaking role during Operation Awards, and Tom Warburton did acknowledge in one of his blog posts that after Potty Mouth was designed to be a background character for Operation Movie, several staff and crew members wanted Potty Mouth to get a speaking role. They eventually got their wish in Operation Awards, and they gave him another speaking role here, however brief it was. And Tom Warburton also acknowledged on one of his blog posts that they were hoping to include an item from all the other entries in Codename Kids Next Door on the Scavenger Hunt, but that just wasn't in the cards. Tom Warburton also acknowledged that certain entries in the series just didn't have a single item that would be a notable representation of that particular entry. So that would have been cool. That was an ambitious idea, but yeah, it just wasn't in the cards. But yeah, it was still pretty cool that they were able to reference a lot of past memories or past events or past characters in this TV special. They managed to fit quite a bit into this TV special, I felt, and that was pretty cool. And yes, with regards to number 80, number 74.239. Yes, so we find out that number 74.239 and number infinity are actually members of the Galactic Kids Next Door. So this strongly, and because how each planet is supposed to have a single operative, this strongly implies that they're actually not human. And I did mention this before, but the teaser regarding the sequel series that was released on an April Fool's Day one year, that teaser revealed that Lizzie is a member of the Galactic Kids Next Door too. She was testing number one all this time. Obviously, or yes, I think it's safe to say that the idea that Lizzie was actually part of the Galactic Kids Next Door wasn't immediately planned when the character first appeared. That was something they came up with much later on, but yes, retroactively, that's pretty interesting how retroactively the Galactic Kids Next Door have been testing number one ever since the series started, or ever since season 1. And yes, with regards to Lizzie's true identity, that gets revealed in the teaser too. So I actually think I will be covering a recap and thoughts for the teaser for the Galactic Kids Next Door teaser, or the teaser hoping to promote interest in the sequel series. It would be nice to go into greater detail about some of the details about that, and kind of helps to make you wonder, or it does raise some questions about the Galactic Kids Next Door. That's the most I'll say. That teaser does raise some interesting questions, so I think it's worth having its own recap and thoughts video. And otherwise, Father actually got to show quite a bit of his scary factor here too, or Father showed why he's a force to be reckoned with. Now, some fans thought that Father reached his peak of villainy in Operation Graduates and thought that he was hit with villain decay afterwards, but having rewatched the series again for the recap and thoughts video, I don't know if I'd necessarily say that Operation Graduates was Father's peak in villainy. Yes, Father did gain more comical characteristics after his initial appearance in Operation Grow Up. Although, to be fair, even in Operation Grow Up, Father did show some comical moments. But yes, while I'd say Father did gain some more comical moments over the course of the series, he still did manage to have some pretty effective plans. Like, I thought Operation I.N.T.E.R.V.I.E.W.S, for example, was a very clever plan on Father's part. And even in the TV movie Operation Zero, Father was able to come up with a great plan to coordinate all the various villains in the world. Although Father did end up getting usurped by Grandfather. So yeah, even in Operation Zero, which most would agree was probably where Father was hit with villain decay the most, Father still managed to have some moments to shine. And even the movie did seem to imply that Father had the potential to be more powerful than Grandfather, even if Grandfather is more dangerous. But yeah, Father never reached that potential, and I do think that was a shame we never got that fight between Father and Grandfather. But here, Father definitely really showed why he's a force to be reckoned with. And if the sequel series were to come around, I'd be interested in seeing how Father would act during the sequel series. So yes, even though this TV special gave us some closure for the series, there still are some questions left to be answered, or there still are speculation and questions that fans are hoping to find answers for. So I definitely would like it if the sequel series does see the light of day eventually. Tom Warburton is definitely more than happy to create a sequel series. We just have to convince... it's just a matter of executives at Cartoon Network being convinced that there is interest in the sequel series. So hopefully it'll happen one day. I'm definitely hoping that the sequel series will see the light of day one of these someday in the future. Oh, and yes, while we did get to see number 0 again, or number 1's dad in his number 0 persona, we do get to see Mrs. Uno's face. And we find out that Mrs. Uno was a Kids Next Door operative too, the first female operative of the 7th age of the Kids Next Door, number 999. So that was pretty cool that we find out that both of number one's parents were members of the Kids Next Door organization. It's just a shame that number 999 didn't get a chance to shine like number 0 did in the TV movie, but who knows, maybe the sequel series can provide us with some answers for that. But also, while I'm thinking about it, yes, with the Galactic Kids Next Door revelation, that also explains why in Operation Planet, number 3 and number 4's spacecraft went back to Earth. It's likely that the Galactic Kids Next Door wanted to prevent anyone else that they didn't want to know about the organization. Or, yeah, it's safe to say that the Galactic Kids Next Door wanted to keep their existence a secret to as many operatives as possible. And number 74.239 was involved with this with that plan to break the ridiculous barrier. So it actually does make sense why number 3 and number 4 didn't break the ridiculous barrier, ended up back on Earth. So that was a pretty clever way to foreshadow the true identity of the Splinter Cell being the Galactic Kids Next Door. So otherwise, that actually might be it. Yes, that was definitely on the longer side, but this is the series finale for Codename Kids Next Door, so there definitely was a lot of details to talk about in this TV special. And yes, I think it was impressive how they managed to reference so many past entries and past characters in the TV special, and there were definitely a lot of tearjerker and heartwarming moments too. I definitely got misty-eyed during the part where number 1 was saying his goodbyes to his family and friends. And also with regards to, yes, while I'm on the topic though, I know some fans weren't really too fond of the ending. They didn't really like the idea of number 1 leaving his family and friends to join the Galactic Kids Next Door. And I can understand that, though I also do understand why number 1 would go through with it. Number 1 has been shown to be very dedicated to the Kids Next Door organization. And I feel like if we do get the sequel series, this will help to, I think that will help with the how sudden the Galactic Kids Next Door revelation was, although it was hinted at beforehand. I do think if the sequel series were made, it would probably, it might help to paint this TV special in a better light for some fans. But yes, I think I do like the TV special. I mean, there were a few things I was bummed out about. Like, I do think that it's a shame that some details still were kind of left hanging, even though the TV special overall did give us some closure. But I still overall enjoyed it, and I do think the sequel series would help to help a better understanding about the idea behind this TV special. So hopefully it happens in the future, but for what it is, I do think it was good we got proper closure for the series, and I do think it had a lot of heartwarming and tearjerker moments. But otherwise, there we go for this TV special. Like I said, I do intend to cover a video dedicated to the to that teaser that was hoping to promote interest in the sequel series, because there's more details to talk about from that teaser. But for now, there we go with regards to the TV special. So as of this video, we've now discussed the TV special series finale for Codename Kids Next Door on this channel. Take care, and until next time,